Welcome back. You're watching World Insight on CCTV News. I'm Tian Wei. Last year was a record year for the global box office, taking in nearly $36 billion in revenue, and that was largely due to China. Chinese box office receipts have grown more than 30% per year for the past decade, and there's still tremendous room for growth. It's no wonder that big Hollywood movies are catering to the Chinese audience by including Chinese elements. But even with ticket sales through the roof, many criticize Chinese homegrown productions have been lacking in quality. Our reporter Yang Yani has the story.
Chinese movies in the spotlight. Director Wang Jing launches the second installment of comedy flick From Vegas to Macau, aiming to seize the bustling Chinese New Year movie season. Big stars, cute kids, exotic beauties and fight scenes. The film's got all the elements to attract moviegoers. And the producers are confident it will also be a hit with the film's financiers.
We have the movie From Vegas to Macau 2 and Emperor's Holidays. I think these two movies will add up to $200 million at the box office.
Many view the New Year season as a gala for China's movie industry. More than 20 films will be released in February, and on New Year's Day, at least 7 movies made their debuts, vying for a share of the booming Chinese movie industry. And such prosperity is not exclusive to the New Year season. China is the second biggest movie market in the world. Nearly 400 movies were released here last year, and box office receipts rose 36% to nearly $5 billion. It comes as the rest of the world experiences a slowdown in cinema ticket sales. The number one market, North America, fell 6% last year.
When it comes to affordable entertainment, many Chinese people head to the movies to catch the latest blockbuster flick. It is these select tickets that have made China such a hotly contested market for Hollywood movies. And including Chinese elements has undoubtedly become the open secret to attracting Chinese moviegoers.
The movie Transformers is a very good example. In a bid to win over Chinese audiences, a large chunk of the action was set in Hong Kong, with roles for Chinese star Li Bingbing. And this approach has worked. The film has become China's biggest ever box office success, generating ticket sales of more than $200 million in less than a fortnight. Chinese moviegoers have mixed views on Hollywood's attempts to lure them to cinemas.
I think it is attractive. It will help us to understand our culture better, and it is very exciting to have the world see our culture.
I think it's better not to be localized. It is weird to include Chinese element in the movie, because sometimes such elements are incompatible with the story.
Meanwhile, Chinese homegrown films have done quite well in box office as well. Local productions took in more than $2.6 billion, accounting for more than 54% of China's box office revenue last year, outpacing US blockbusters for a second year in a row. But some are questioning why the films have enjoyed such success despite negative reviews from some movie critics. A noticeable example is Tiny Times, directed by Chinese author Guo Jingming. Slammed by many as glorification of materialism, the movie attracted many young moviegoers, grossing close to $200 million in sales since the first installment opened in 2013, a record box office for a Chinese-made film series. Chinese critics argue that some of the best-selling films in 2014 were either bad or mediocre. But they all have one thing in common: star power. Back on the red carpet, movie makers are looking forward to another successful year at China's growing box office. But many are wondering if Chinese-made films can continue to dominate ticket sales in the face of stiff competition from Hollywood. Yang Ni, CCTV, Beijing.
And for more on the development of Chinese movie and the Chinese movie market, we are joined in the studio by Miss Emily Yiming Liu. She is a director and producer, and also we have Mr. Ben Ji, a producer and former Warner Brothers and Disney executive. Meanwhile, in New York, we have Professor Teng Jimeng from Beijing Foreign Studies University. Professor Teng is now there in the United States as a visiting scholar. Welcome to the three of you.
Thank you.
Glad
Thank
to
you for
be
having
here.
us.
Great to have you. Movies, when we talk about that, everybody's eyes get bigger because we are really looking forward to some wonderful productions. First of all, Mr. Ji, help us to understand how attractive these days is China's movie market, both domestically and, of course, internationally as well.
Well, domestically, for Chinese movies, for Chinese movie market is another record year. You know, we have been experiencing this kind of two-digit growth rate for the past maybe 10 years. So now China is the second biggest market in the world. But, well, a lot of audience complain about the quality of the Chinese movies. So personally, I would like to say it's last year, it's a year of big box office, but lousy, Chinese movies, lousy productions. And internationally, I think in general, especially the North America, the market is kind of saturated. So compared to the great growth of Chinese market, American market, international market is like going, kind of declining.
I see.
Yeah.
For the Chinese market, production particularly, big market, lousy production, keywords coming from Mr. Ji.
Thank you.
Do you agree with that, Ms. Liu?
Yes, I do.
Unfortunately.
It's just, because last year, I think the market reached 29.6 billion, and then I think it's gonna estimated to reach way over 40 billion by the end of this year. It just, when you think about the whole year, you can't remember many specific movies that we really love and really enjoy.
All right. They say those in China are the most concerned about the latest situation in China. Anyone from outside are probably most optimistic. Let's ask Professor Tang. Professor Tang, you've been away from Beijing for quite a few months. What do you think? Really lousy productions when you look from outside into the Chinese market now?
These films are doing extremely well, especially I think in terms of the increase the box office revenues last year. It was almost like a dramatic increase in terms of this box office revenue. At the same time, I'm also kind of like observing an interesting phenomenon that these old revolutionary films now being remade into some kind of a new format films. For example, Tsui Hark's Taking the Tiger Mountains by Strategy, which is very exciting, kind of a new genre film to me. The film actually opened in New York and was very much kind of well received by the local audience. It reminds me of my old days back in China in the 1970s and even a good part of the 1980s. And so I congratulate Chinese filmmakers, and I hope that more new genre films and more creative writers and film directors would emerge in the coming new year.
Okay, I see. Well, is that really necessarily the case that we are only having the talent, Mr. Ji, according to Professor Tang, to remake some of the old classics, not necessarily have the wisdom to come up with new stories to attract really the moviegoers these days?
Well, it's kind of we cannot say it's a trend, but it's a kind of a new genre. The new storytelling, the new like 3D technology used for filmmaking based on the classic stories, for taking Tiger Mountain case is Beijing Opera. So yeah, there are more and more Chinese filmmakers, directors are looking for making kind of new movies based on the classic materials.
Right.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to ask, in fact, getting out of you, Mr. Ji, is whether we tried anymore to make real stories, good stories. Whether we try anymore to make real good quality productions. Whether we try anymore to make movies that people could still remember because it's good, even years from now. Do we still try anymore?
I think all Chinese or all filmmakers worldwide are trying to find better materials, better stories. But it's getting harder and harder.
But when you have a market as hot as that, it seems that whatever you make, it's going to have some good revenue coming in, box office.
It is just, as a filmmaker, as a writer, director, it is really difficult to develop original, brilliant story, and then also try to make it into a wonderful film. It is a difficult process. Takes a lot of patience.
It's difficult everywhere, isn't it? And it's difficult for every generation, isn't it? So my question is, do we try anymore?
But I think especially the writing process, I think in China, because everybody is so impatient to make quick money, like say, for example, these movies made from the variety TV shows, that these movies are shot in 6 days and make lots of money. So like the investors, these nice quick money, they would probably fight to invest in these kind of films rather than spend months, years
if I may,
try to develop projects. Of course, yes, I hope people can devote that kind of energy and time to develop great stories.
So you say it's not realistic anymore, because our mentality has changed. Have we, Professor Tang? What is the reason?
Yes,
really?
if I may.
Please.
If I may, can I disagree? I think that the Chinese directors and scriptwriters are also working very, very hard in terms of in terms of being creative. For example, last year we have 3 very important and prominent directors like Mr. Diao Yinan, Black Hole Thin Eyes, which is also Berlin International Film Award winner, the Golden Bear winner, and also Wang Xiaoshuai, the Red Amnesia, and plus some indie film directors are also working very hard, like my friend Dong Jun, whose film
Here's the question. Those are wonderful case studies, but here's the question. Why those titles, why those directors are not at all getting the mainstream market attention? Is it because these days our movie market all about promotion? Therefore, these art house movies or something closer to art house movies will never attract any attention, and therefore nobody even know their names. Professor Tang, briefly.
Well, I think the major problem has to do with, in a sense, giving them the time slot, giving these great art house films, which are International Film Award winning, a special time slot to support them. For example, film chains, cinema chains do not actually arrange this ideal time slot for these art house films. Instead, they put these commercial blockbuster films at the very best time slot. For example, mostly in the afternoon or in the evening.
Right.
These great time slots are reserved solely for these blockbusters. I think there must be a policy change on the part of the filmmakers, on the part of film regulators and cinema chain managers. In this case, I think these great films could be made available. Otherwise,
is the mindset of regulators going to change? Can we rely on that so that we are going to have some wonderful movies? When I say wonderful movies, not just blockbuster movies. When I'm talking about real good movies that you can be proud of as a country, I would say, Mr. G.
Well, the thing is, for cinema managers, they're not, to blame for not giving the enough time slot for what we call the art house or high quality movies, because they're running a shop, they're running their business. They have to find the movie, the kind of product that can attract the most kind of audience.
But wouldn't that be the same case everywhere? Why art house movies are also being shown elsewhere in the world? For example, in the American market, why not here?
My answer is this, very simple. You know what? There's a very interesting data. China has the youngest audience. The average age of audience in China is 21 years old. It's the youngest in the world. You cannot expect 20-something young people to stay through a kind of low-paced, very deep kind of art expressive movies.
I see. Is Mr. G falling into the stereotype? Blame the young. Go ahead.
Well, because say if you go to movie theaters in the States, I mean, there are plenty of gray hair people going to the movie theaters, old couple, they hand in hand go to movies. I think it's just definitely a more mature market, because they've developed the market for 15 years.
There's a great diversification of age group of audience in other part of the world.
But you would also argue that this is a chicken and egg thing. It really depends on what kind of production you are
not
putting
really.
forward for the audience? For example, if the audience is upset for once, for twice,
not
and three
really.
times, I'm sure they're not
Well,
going back
it's
anymore.
it's kind of lifestyle. It's kind of movie-going habit. Even though there's a great
exactly.
movies in the cinemas, for people about my age or older than me, they don't go to cinemas. They don't have this habit.
Professor Tang, so that means if China is having as young a group of moviegoers, that means we're going to have shallow movies, we're just going to have a blockbuster movie, that's it.
Well, first thing first, I think the Chinese cinema market can be very, very diversified. I think we have different stratifications in terms of the moviegoers. We do have young film goers, which constitutes a considerable part of that population of the viewing public. But we do, once again, have this mature, middle-aged, or what I say, the middle-class cinema goers with considerable disposable income in terms of going to cinema and watch movies, like here in the United States, for example. When I go to the movie theater, and we do see these white-haired, gray-haired couples, and this college, plus the college age viewers.
So much for the demographic debate. We probably need to
genres.
do a national survey about that in order to have the most concrete answer. But the other thing I really need to ask you is the possible international competition. After all, there's still the limit as to what kind of and how many blockbuster movies from overseas now can be shown in Chinese cinemas.
That's right.
But in the year 2017 to the year 2018, that kind of limit is likely to be scrapped off. Therefore, Chinese movies, Ms. Liu, is going to compete shoulder by shoulder with the international good movies, the real top cream, shall we say, of the international movies. Can Chinese movies compete?
I'm actually sort of pessimistic at this point, because if the way it is going right now, like the quality of the movies, I guess Chinese the film creative community really have to start working very hard to especially also maybe the whole community or the government agencies or the investors really need to put in efforts and financial support to help people, to give them opportunities to spend the time, to spend energy, patiently develop,
nurture and incubate.
To nurture and then incubate good projects. Otherwise, the way it is now, I'm pessimistic. But I think that at one point I try to make is that right now, because the imported 34 films, all of them are big effects movies, blockbuster movies. But I think when we reach 2017, probably some other better American films that can come into China, that probably can bring a better effect rather than just showing all these big, huge blockbuster
and therefore, probably
movies.
the competition will be even more intense for the Chinese homemade. Mr. Ji, are we prepared?
I think we're well prepared. Actually, I have two more points.
We will be thinking about being prepared.
I have two more points to add to this question. Actually, because from my experience working at Warner Brothers and Disney, the ultimate goal for these Hollywood studios in China is not just about the increase of quota for their movies to be imported into China. Their target is to do distribution by themselves in China. So there will be a scenario that will be taking place eventually. Warner Brothers, they may distribute Chinese movies in China. So if that's the case, it's happening everywhere. I mean,
the competition is going to happen throughout the system rather than just the production itself.
There will be a mixture. And the other point I would like to add is, as we all know, a lot of Chinese, especially internet companies, they are talking with Hollywood studios to buy their properties, even to buy Hollywood studios. So if at the end of the day, Warner Brothers is owned by a Chinese company. So you will call the movies produced by Warner a Chinese movie or American movie?
For now, let's do a scenario, but that's an interesting scenario. Therefore, Professor Tang, let me ask you, it is not just about international companies coming into China and want to do the whole system operation here in this country. It's also about international movie directors, artists coming into this country looking for funding. Because with the recent movies such as Wolf Totem, this French director is having his production company working with a Chinese one to produce a movie that is shown for the Chinese market. So Professor Tang, are we going to see international talents in a way becoming the mainstream of Chinese movie makers if the Chinese movie makers these days continue to be what they are, not necessarily looking at the quality but only the quantity?
I don't foresee that to happen in the near future. I think it is going to be a trend. I understand that Wolf Totem involved lots of French talents, and this French great director actually was involved in this project. But then, in fact, I think that for China's film industry to develop, we should continue to develop, and by relying on ourselves.
I see.
And I agree with Ms. Liu in terms of continue to improve these very ecosystems within the Chinese film industry, from top to down, for example, from soft, from the regulators into the industry practitioners, the directors, the actors.
All right.
Instead, see, even though that we have a kind of a high learning curve, the China's film
but we
industry
need to
will
learn.
continue
That just as
develop.
simple as that. We are running out
We're
of time.
getting there.
Yes.
Yes, we are. We
Yes.
are
I'm
getting
very-
there.
I'm very
And I think
optimistic.
co-production
We're
should be a
getting
way
there,
out.
Okay. Well, that is a really very nice conclusion, what you just said. We are getting there. I hope we are, and we are trying hard. Thank you so much on this occasion to invite the three of you coming
It's a
into
pleasure.
our studio, talk
Our
about Chinese
pleasure.
movies. Miss Emily Yi Ming
Thank you.
Liu, and also Mr. Ben Ji. Meanwhile, Professor
you.
Teng Jimeng. Thank you so much for being
Thank
with
you.
us. And that is all the time we have for today. I'd like to know what you think about anything you've seen on our program. So you can email us your thought, worldinsight@cctv.com. I'm Tian Wei from myself and the World Insight team. Thanks for watching, and join us again tomorrow for more global perspectives and stories from across China and certainly from around the world. Good night.